Hello and welcome to Money Matters on TV 360. I am Adeshewa Odushoga. Today on the program, we begin with Nigeria's 2018 budget. The document has been signed by President Muhammadu Buhari, despite disagreements between the executives and the legislature. The federal government have accused the lawmakers of distorting key benchmarks in the budget on purpose in order to fund their constituency projects. The cuts made by the National Assembly amount to 347 billion naira, 4,700 projects. They also inserted 6.403 projects into the budget, amounting to 578 billion naira, and defended the action, saying it is to promote federal character. But the federal government did not back down. Presidential spokesman Garuba Shehu in a statement said the lawmakers purposely refused to honor agreements made with the executives to increase the price for oil to $50 per barrel so they can add 170 billion naira to their constituency project allocations. Oil price was later increased to $51 per barrel. Away from all that, the budget has been signed and implementation has begun. This next report you're about to watch gives an insight on key details of the document. Enjoy. On May 16, 2018, the National Assembly passed a budget of 9.12 trillion naira for the 2018 fiscal year, which is about 6% increase of the 8.61 trillion proposal presented by President Muhammadu Buhari in November 7, 2017. These also represent a 22.6% increase of the 7.44 trillion budget of 2017. The fiscal operations of the 2018 appropriation are to result in an 1.95 trillion deficit, which is 1.73% of GDP and represents a 60 billion naira reduction compared to the 2018 executive proposal, a deficit of 1.77% of GDP. And 450 billion naira reduction compared to the 2017, where the deficit was 2.61% of GDP. This reduction in deficit is in line with the objectives of the government's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, EGRP. But like the 2017 budget, the 2018 budget has also been bedeviled by crisis. The crisis associated with the 2018 budget began with the late approval of the 2018 to 2020 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper (FSP), which ordinarily should precede the presentation of the budget of the National Assembly. The Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper (FSP) are policy documents that articulate the assumptions underlying the budget. The MTEF, which was initially presented to the National Assembly, had to be withdrawn as a result of allegations by the former that the document had several errors and faulty assumptions. A fresh MTEF document was eventually presented and approved December 8, 2017, barely a month after the President presented to a joint session of the National Assembly. It was the first time the budget presentation would be made before the passage of the MTEF since the enactment of the Fiscal Responsibility Act in 2007. After months of delay and back and forth between the executive and parliament, President Buhari eventually signed the budget into law on June 20, 2018. But the president did so grudgingly and accused the lawmakers of cutting off over 4,000 projects the executive had proposed and adding over 6,000 of your own. Take a listen to some of what the president said.
The provision for various strategic interventions in the health sector, such as the upgrade of some tertiary health institutions, transport and storage of vaccines through the cold chain supply system, provision of antiretroviral drugs for persons on treatment, establishment of chemotherapy centers, and procurement of dialysis consumables were cut by an aggregate amount of 7.45 billion naira. The provision for security infrastructure in the 104 unity schools across the country were cut by 3 billion naira at a time when securing our students against acts of terrorism ought to be a major concern of government. F. The provision for the federal government's national housing program was cut by 8.7 billion naira. G. At a time when we are working with labor to address compensation-related issues, a total of 5 billion naira was cut from the provision for pension redemption fund and public service wage adjustment. H. The provision for export expansion grant and special economic zone industrial parks, which are key industrialization initiatives of this administration, were cut by a total of 14.5 billion naira. I. The provision for construction of the terminal building at Enugu Airport was cut from 2 billion naira to 500 million naira, which will further delay the completion of this critical project. The take-up grant for the Maritime University in Delta State, a key strategic initiative of the federal government, was cut from 5 billion naira to 3.4 billion naira. K. About 70 new road projects have been inserted into the budget of the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing. In doing so, the National Assembly applied some of the additional funds expected from the upward review of the oil price benchmark to the ministry's vote. Regrettably, however, in order to make provision for some of the new roads, the amounts allocated to some strategic major roads have been cut by the National Assembly.
The lawmakers swiftly called your own press conference to give their response 24 hours after President leveled those allegations against them. The spokesperson of the Senate and House of Representatives both addressed journalists giving their own side of the story.
It was stated that the legislature made cuts amounting to 347 billion, which were meant for 4,700 projects. Again, these reductions of 347 billion were made from low priority areas to higher priority areas to support the generation of employment for our youth by micro, small, and medium enterprises. We took the decision to reduce the funds in some areas in order to ensure balance and equity in the spread and utilization of our national funds. Additionally, the figures giving amounts of the reductions made by the National Assembly were unduly exaggerated, as we did not make any substantial reduction on any project to the extent of affecting its implementation. To give the exact details of the projects where we made deductions, it should be noted that the counterpart funding for the Mambila Power Plant, Second Niger Bridge and ancillary roads, the East-West Road, Boni-Bodo Road, Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, and Itakpe-Ajaokuta Rail Project was reduced by only 3,956,400,290 naira, which represents only 1.78% of the total amount, standing at 222,569,335,924 naira as submitted by the President. This left this project with 218,612,935,634 naira, which cannot negatively affect their implementation.
The increase in the oil benchmark from the projected $45 to the actual price of $55 generated additional 523.65 billion for the federal government. Thus, based on agreement between the National Assembly and the Executive, as represented by the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, the additional revenues were allocated among the three arms as follows. The executive proposal for the National Judicial Council was 100 billion. However, the National Assembly appropriated 110 billion, which represents 10 billion increase. B. The executive proposal for the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) was 71 billion 195 million 23,529 naira. However, the National Assembly appropriated 81 billion 882 million 555,891 naira, which represents 10 billion 687 million 532,363 increase. An additional 33 billion 981 million 437,188 naira was also appropriated for the outstanding liabilities to the NDDC by the federal government to enable the commission to settle some of its contractors that were owed over 1 trillion naira. The public should note that this increase in the legislature's budget was also necessitated by the drastic inflation of the last 4 years. The need to rehabilitate the National Assembly deteriorating facilities, like the elevators, you can see it around when you're coming up, which shut down almost weekly, spending hundreds of millions to procure diesel to constantly power the entire complex, and the need to immediately upgrade the security facilities of the complex.
The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, has said the federal government will mitigate the negative impact of the delay in the passage of the 2018 budget on the Nigerian economy. Well, moving away from that, barely 13 years after it liquidated and shut down, the Nigerian national carrier is set to come alive again. The former national carrier Nigerian Airways, which was owned and managed by the successive military governments, was shut down due to mismanagement and maintenance. Now, the current Minister of State for Aviation, Adi Sirika, has announced that the country will soon have a privately owned national carrier, which will be inaugurated in December 24, 2018. It described the reinvention of the national carrier as a catalyst to the growth and development of other sectors of the economy. But due to limited time, some Nigerians still have a doubt of the government meeting the December deadline. Well, there have been debates on national carrier that has tended to tilt in favor of those who said the government-owned airline cannot succeed in Nigeria, going by the experience of the defunct Nigerian Airways Limited. But those who opposed to the establishment of a national carrier usually justify their positions by saying government is not capable of running a business. This next report you're about to watch speaks more. Formerly known as the West African Airways Corporation, WAC Nigeria, the Nigerian Airways was established in 1958, where Nigeria has a 51% ownership until 1961, when it increased the company's participation to 100%. Before it stopped operations in 2003, the Murtala Muhammad International Airport served both domestic and international destinations, which mainly concentrated in West Africa. As a result of mismanagement, corruption, and overstaffing, the airline had debt totaling $528 million. Nigerian Airways was succeeded by Virgin Nigeria, and the ground facilities were taken over by Arik Air. However, the story seems to have changed as the federal government announced the establishment of a new national carrier, which is set to take effect by December 2018. This announcement by the federal government has been attracting reactions from the Nigerians who feel the decision is long overdue.
Well, let me tell you, I've been an advocate of a national carrier. Some people talk about, it's an outdated concept, it's no longer something that the industry, the global industry, is keen about. And I say to them, it is not true. There have been quite some changes in the concept. Sometimes people call it national flag carrier. Some people call it national carrier. But those who are saying it's an outdated concept, they will point out to British Airways, they point to British Airways, they will point to Air France, all those airlines before. But they forget that all these airlines were national carriers before they were sold to the public and they became private carriers. But look, even then, they are still the flag carriers of their country. They're still the flag carriers of their countries. Air France is a French national flag carrier. Vito, Lufthansa, Ditto, KLM, Ditto, British Airways. If you touch any of them, in any setting, their government will immediately come up to make sure that nothing happens to that airline.
Nigeria and the Nigerian people, we deserve carriers that we can be proud of. Mark my word, carriers. And I said to myself, we don't want a monopoly national carrier. We want national carriers that will be competitive, meaning that we need more than one. If the national carrier is flying to London and the service is not economic and is not efficient, I want to try another one, which is another national carrier. So there will be competition. I look forward to a national carrier that will compete with British Airways, that will compete with Virgin, that will compete with Emirates, with Ethiopia, and looking at the very many frequencies that are already in the market. I look forward to the national carrier that will balance the trade. Can one do it? How long will it take that one to do it? So, we're looking forward to national carriers.
Nigerians also advise that privatization of the national carrier would help improve management and aid efficient services. Many are looking forward to this new development, adding that its rebirth is one of the best things that is about to happen to Nigeria.
Nigeria was the best thing that ever happened to Nigeria. And the death was one of the disasters that ever happened also. That airline was great. The men that managed that airline, they were professionals, very sound. The owner of that airline was government, and it's the owner that killed it. I remember early 70s, I was not working for Nigeria Airways. I was working for another airline, foreign airline. And I know that when government use aircraft of Nigeria Airways, they never pay. They issue what they call government warrants, and they use it to pay for tickets, to pay for airway bills, do Hajj operations, do refugee movements, and they never pay. So when you own an airline and you don't pay because you are the owner, you buy things and you don't pay, you are self-destroying. So the government that owned that airline, Nigerian Airways, are the one who equally killed it. Yes, you can tell me that some of the workers, blah, blah, blah. The MDs were chosen by government by political choice. Military came and ran the airline with gun on table. And civil aviation is not run by gun, it's not military. So they killed the airline. What am I saying? The national carrier that is coming, I don't expect that it will run a la Nigeria Airways. Even though I don't know the process and what is going on, I do know that there's a committee of government agencies to try and monitor the transaction advisor. But I would not imagine that it will be run like that Nigeria Airways, where government is the owner, government will not pay for what they buy, and government will choose MDs and things. I imagine it to be done differently. And if it is done differently, ownership is a major issue. If government is going to have stake at all, it should be very, very minimal. And even that minima will not give government the right to choose and choose and choose who does what. Because what you would then hear is that, oh, because government have 5% in the airline, you go there, director of operation. You go there, director of commercials. And these are politicians. So before the airline starts, the airline has begun to fail. So if it is run a la Nigeria ways, then the airline will have failed before starting.
They owned it before, and government did whatever they wanted to do with it. It was being operated like private airlines owning their airlines today, and they do whatever they want to do with it. They want to travel the way they want to travel. They are not paying. They want to do favors for people who are not paying, and that kind of a thing. So I was saying today that one of the major challenges, in fact, all the collapses that have happened, behind every collapse is one major problem: owner-manager syndrome. When the owner of an airline is managing it, the challenge will be there. It happened in the banking industry. That's why we were collapsing. That's why central bank moved in and removed the owner-manager challenge that faced the banks. And since central bank removed it, and now we make sure, before ever you appoint an MD, central bank must approve. Central bank must approve. That kind of thing. When you go, because they removed the owner managers, and that's why our banks are thriving today, very much thriving. So, but the airline has not happened. That's why airlines are collapsing. They will still collapse in as much as once the owner is managing it. So what is happening is that with about less than 10% equity in an airline, you cannot control that airline. You cannot manage it. There are those, foreign investor should be able to have up to 20 or 25% equity. You understand? And then Nigerian corporate individuals and individuals will want to invest. If he goes to stock market, he will want to invest. You will have a board. The federal government will only have one person in the board. All those who have invested, they won't want their investment to go down the drain. That is why it will not be run the way Nigeria Ways was run. If we set up an airline in the zone of Nigeria Ways, it will collapse. You understand? If we set up an airline in the zone of Nigeria Ways, it will collapse. But what is happening, it is not going to be in that. So far, for now, so far, so good. On the template, what's on the ground. So I am confident that if we go the way we are going, we will overcome a lot of the challenges that faced Nigeria Ways.
With the reintroduction of the new national carrier, challenges are expected to arise in areas that might be a threat to the existence as well as sustainability.
I will throw a caution to government that is midwifing this process, that all stakeholders must be involved. There's a lot of mess from the former Nigeria Airways that was government. The people are still crying and they are dying because their benefits were not paid. And these are the manpower that you're likely going to use. They're still all over the place.
The challenge, of leasing, which has been a problem for Africa, and particularly for Nigeria, will be reduced. The issue of repossession, insurance, all those things that have been a major cost to the industry will be taken off. 2, a maintenance and repair organization overhaul center in Nigeria will remove the whole challenge of flying equipment, aircraft outside this country to go and maintain with all the huge costs available. 2, all the challenges airlines have here, when an aircraft is on the ground, AOG, they are waiting for parts, will be eliminated with a leasing company here. When there's a leasing company attached with a relationship with the maintenance and repairs and overhaul center, you know that maintenance and repair and overhaul center will be responsible for the maintenance and repairs of all aircraft leased from the leasing company. So there's a symbiotic relationship between them. Then the airlines will draw the benefits, because once your aircraft is on the ground, the leasing company, with the arrangement you have, will fly in, will give you another aircraft to operate. So it will not just be on the ground, you are losing money. Then they will invite the maintenance, repairs, and overhaul center, the outfit, to come and take care of that aircraft. So a whole lot of things will be eliminated. Cost will come down because insurance premium will go down. 1, it is the leasing company that will insure all its aircraft. You understand what I'm saying? We take out the insurance. So with the volume, the rate will be low. If you know what Nigerians are paying for hull insurance, for aircraft insurance, you'll be amazed. If you compare it with what Ethiopian Airlines is paying, you'll be sorry for our own airlines. Because they have three aircraft is a volume thing. If you don't have the volume, you don't get a good rate. But with a leasing company owning about 50, 40 aircraft, they will get better insurance rates. They will then, in terms of maintenance, they will have a better deal with the maintenance and repair over, which is here. Cost is limited. Cost is reduced completely for both the leasing company and the airlines, and that will rub off on the financials of the airlines, on the bottom line, and it also will affect passengers because the airlines will have to at least have fares that are reasonable, that passengers can fly, and the volume of passengers will increase. So that's that's the triangular strategy that is in place. That comes in place, you can see that the issue of acquisition of aircraft, all those things will become a matter that can be solved easily. And that's why NCAA is telling you, because NCAA is part of the team set up for midwifing of the airline. Agencies, FAN, NAMA, all of them are there so that they can facilitate the quick emergence of that airline. The problem of waiting too long to get this thing, license, operational license, will not be there. All the certifications, all they require to start, or the airline requires to start operation, the agencies will be there. FAN is there in terms of space at the airport. NAMA is there to provide whatever it's supposed to provide. These are facilitations, not any other thing, and that's what the government should do. If government is going to hold equity, government is contributing this as part of its equity. That's what we call sweat equity. Government equity should be more of sweat equity than even other investments. That's what it is. I strongly believe that the airline will come on board because the people who are there are seriously minded people. The CEOs, they are professionals in their own right. They are CEOs, they are seriously minded. When you move out from that, there's the will. Government has the will, because once there is will, then things will go well. Along with this will is tied to what is tied to this will is passion. Everybody involved, from the minister to the government to even Federal Executive Council, because these things have been discussed at the level of Federal Executive Council, to those who are all involved, there's a passion. You can be a professional. If you don't have a passion for what you are doing, you are not going to be very successful. But there is passion in all of them. The will is there from side of government, and the professionals are in position trying to make sure that this work. It will work, from my own assessment.
Despite this, some Nigerians seem not to be positive about the creation of a new national carrier, believing that it is not a logical step for the aviation industry in Nigeria. They also suggested an alternative, which is opening up Nigeria's airspace for more direct and frequent flights to and from African cities, adding that it has the potential to boost the economy by $128 million and create over 17,000 jobs. Well, if the dreams of establishing the national carrier could come to pass come December, the national carrier would of course increase the government's revenue, create more jobs, and probably result in the growth of the Nigeria tourism industry. Well, that's it on Money Matters. You can watch the program again on our website at www.tv360nigeria. You can also watch on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/TV360 Nigeria. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus account at TV360 Nigeria. I am Adeshawa Udushaga. Thanks for watching.